Thank you, Jan. A beautiful young woman said, I want to be liked. But when I succeed in getting people to like me, I feel extremely uncomfortable. I don't know how to lose interest in wanting to be liked. It seems so important, and yet it makes me feel very uneasy. It is generally believed that it is normal to want to be liked. Yet it can be a problem. How can that which is normal be a problem? The young lady was asked, who is making you do these things which the young lady was asked, who is making her do the things which she does in order to be liked? She answered, my thoughts. Then she was asked, how do you know that those are your thoughts? She said, because I'm thinking them. It seems to me that being liked is something that I want. And yet it is a problem because part of me resents it. Now this example makes us ask, are we thinking our own thoughts? It certainly seems so. But is it? Is it so? Is man a producer of thoughts? Are there any thoughts at all that are strictly our own? And how could we tell the difference? Suppose the above-mentioned young woman had some less conventional thoughts. For example, suppose she were to think, I want to get rid of my breasts. She could possibly be driven by such thoughts to inflict some injury on herself and seek surgery or an accident or some disease to fulfill the demands of those thoughts. And she would still have the conviction that she is acting and bringing certain experiences into her life in accordance with her own thoughts. This reminds us of performances by hypnotists who give their subject certain post-hypnotic suggestions and simultaneously command them to believe that it is their own will they are acting upon. Now, such a subject cannot be freed of his post-hypnotic trance until he is helped to become aware of the fact that the suggested thoughts were not really his thoughts. Anne has referred to this very clearly this morning. Similarly, one cannot be liberated from one's problems until there is an awareness of the meaning and origin of the thoughts which exert their pressure on an individual. If we realize that we are just living out someone else's fantasies, suggestions, personal values, and wants, then one can turn away from them and wake up. It is therefore of great importance to ask, are these thoughts my thoughts? Metapsychiatry claims that man is not capable of producing his own thoughts. Now that's a revolutionary idea, don't you think? Some people may take offense at that. If this be true, then all our thoughts have come to us from somewhere else. Therefore, we are living in a state of hypnotism. We are living in a dream and dreaming dreams which have been suggested to us either overtly or covertly. It has been observed that Freudian patients have Freudian dreams, and Jungian patients tend to have Jungian dreams, etc. The medieval physician Paracelsus observed that nothing can be in human consciousness except what enters through the five senses. Of course, he was unaware of subliminal and extrasensory elements of communication. Furthermore, he conveniently ignored the possibility of God or the divine mind as a source of creative ideas reaching human consciousness through inspiration. But these are still not our thoughts. They belong to God. Therefore, in metapsychiatry, we understand that thoughts have two sources. Invalid thoughts come to us from the sea of mental garbage, where ignorant humans live and move and have their being, while valid thoughts come from the ocean of love intelligence, where enlightened man dwells. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. In metapsychiatry, we learn to distinguish between existentially valid and invalid thoughts, and thereby we can safeguard our consciousness from pollutants. We are stewards of our consciousness and can preserve its purity. We cease to be victims of parental fantasies and human hypnotism. Awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. In this light, we can see clearly that only God's thoughts constitute our being. This realization is absolutely necessary in order for healings to take place. A sophisticated psychiatrist could say, all this is religious nonsense, encouraging people to become paranoiacs and hear their thoughts coming to them from alien source in the form of hallucinations. Indeed, it is true that there are mentally disturbed people who are clearly aware that their thoughts are not their own, and they feel tormented and victimized by these hallucinations. But attempting to convince them that they are hearing their own thoughts has been utterly futile as a therapeutic approach. It seems much more helpful to invite them to learn to discriminate between valid thoughts and invalid thoughts. Notwithstanding their source and mode of entrance into awareness. As to hallucinations, we can understand that they are phenomena of the hypnotic trance, which can be deeper or shallower at different times, just like sleep. In sleep, we all hallucinate. We call it dreaming. Normal, unenlightened life is a state of dreaming. Parental fantasies are communicated to children either overtly or subliminally, verbally or non-verbally, with or without conscious intent. For instance, a child may come home from school with a diagnosis of dyslexia. From that moment on, she ceases to be a daughter to her highly educated parents. She becomes a clinical case to be studied anxiously and therapeuticized on every turn. The result is catastrophic because the child becomes increasingly self-conscious, insecure, and clumsy, full of rage and despair. From here on, her life is a dream of inadequacy and failure. The father has eaten a sour grape, and the children's teeth are on edge. Of course, the intentions are good, both in the school system and with the parents. However, ignorance and miseducation inevitably lead to suffering and even tragic consequences. Some children get programmed for disaster and some for success, some for poverty and some for riches. But no one is going to be happy or healthy as long as he lives the fantasies of his parents. That's what Jesus meant when he said to the 70-year-old Nicodemus, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. That which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit." It has been clear since ancient times that the human experience is by and large unsatisfactory, self-contradictory, and rather incomprehensible. Man that is born of woman is of few days and full of trouble. That's in Job. This realization has led to many philosophies and efforts to find ways of making sense out of life, and perchance to improve man's lot through some form of transformation. As a result, we have a whole array of religious, philosophical, and psychological systems which recommend or believe in reincarnation, transmigration of the soul, being born again, transfiguration, redemption, salvation, resurrection, curing, healing, conversion, and Anne added one this morning you may not have noticed, ascension. To bring some clarity into this profusion of claims and ideas, we shall here attempt to define as many of these as would be helpful for our purposes. Looking at it from a metapsychiatric point of view, we can say the following. We see reincarnation as the materially human counterpart of being born again. It is a change from flesh to flesh. Every time we change our mode of self-confirmatory behavior, we are reincarnating ourselves into another material form. The most drastic instances of reincarnation in vogue today are cosmetic surgery and transsexualism. We see transmigration of the soul as a shift from one form of animality to another within the character structure of a primitive individual consciousness. For instance, when someone who has lived as a pussycat decides to become a tiger, We see being reborn of the Spirit as synonymous with enlightenment. Right, Doyle? It entails realizing the true essence and substance of life in its individual manifestation. When Buddha was reborn of the Spirit, he said, "I have now escaped the necessity of reincarnations forever." We understand this to mean that enlightened man loses the universal human urge for self-confirmatory ideation. A cure we see as an attempt at repairing a defective aspect of the human body or mind. Healing is an endeavor to restore an individual to wholeness in terms of his mode of being in the world. Redemption is an endeavor to re-establish an individual's sense of self-worth. Salvation is an endeavor to rescue an individual from a morally misdirected mode of being in the world. Transfiguration is the discernment of the fact that man is not a material form he seems to be. Conversion is a changed perception of reality or certain aspects of reality. We can distinguish 5 forms of conversion. There is sensory conversion, which occurs when an individual commits himself totally to a life of pleasure-seeking. Emotional conversion occurs when an individual becomes sentimental about something, like, for instance, religion. Ideological conversion occurs when an individual discovers a different philosophy, theology, or political doctrine than what he has previously been attached to. Cognitive conversion occurs when someone, say an artist, begins to see some new aspects of reality and changes his way of expressing himself in his work. Spiritual conversion occurs when someone awakens to the reality of God as manifesting itself in spiritual values, qualities, and ideas. It is interesting to note that in most forms of conversion, individuals will say, "I have changed. I am not what I was before." However, in the case of spiritual conversion, the individual will say, "I am what I always was and always will be. I am what I am. I am a place where God's presence reveals itself as love intelligence." We see then that in contrast to Oriental religions, Jesus did not speak of reincarnation or transmigration of the soul. He demonstrated spiritual transformation on the Mount of Transfiguration and pointed to the absolute necessity of spiritual enlightenment as the ultimate answer to the human condition. "Marvel not that I say unto thee, ye must be born again." Finally, coming back to the issue of thinking, we find that an atomic physicist by the name of David Bohm has something very interesting to say. He describes the practical implications of his studies in high energy physics the following way. The dissolution of the thinker is the highest priority the seeker for the truth can undertake. The analogy of the atom with thought and with an alleged thinker who authors thought is crucial. The thinker is like the atom cohering in time through its binding energy. When the binding energy of the physical atom is released in an accelerator, the resulting energy, which is staggeringly huge, becomes freed. Analogously, huge amounts of binding energy are needed to create and to sustain the thinker, and to maintain the illusion that he is a stable entity. The dismantling of the thinker yields energy that is qualitatively charged. It is not neutral or value-free. It is energy characterized by wholeness and the force of compassion. Physics and ethics become one in this process. The energy of the whole somehow is bound up with what we call holiness. In short, love is energy. The psychological atom smasher, which we all are, thus coincides with the saint. Consciousness becomes aligned with the energy of the universe, and such a human being radiates, glows with clarity, intelligence, order, and love by his mere presence. Metapsychiatry says enlightened man is a beneficial presence in the world. He glows in the transcendental light of infinite love intelligence. Bill, what's on your mind?
I for one like
He remembered.
You can tell us what you liked about it. Well, this may require a little thinking and yes. Sure.
Dr. Hora, would you please expand a little bit on the analogy of the atom and the thinker? That's a very different.
Yes, well, it's not my analogy, it's David Bohm's analogy, but I thought it is very interesting that here is an atomic physicist, a research worker in high energy physics, and he sees an analogy, a correlation between smashing an atom, breaking it apart, and releasing the energy, and dissolving the thinker. You see, while metapsychiatry doesn't speak about the dissolution of the thinker, but the realization that there is no thinker, that God is the only real thinker. And when we are set free of the illusion that we are thinkers, we suddenly become what Jan reminded you about the funnel consciousness. See, we are available for infinite love intelligence to flow freely through us. And a great deal of energy is being released because from that moment on, there is no more inner pressure to constantly confirm ourselves. See, we are wasting an awful lot of energy in life by the compulsion. It's an inherent compulsion. It's a miserable aspect of the human condition that everybody has an urge to brag all the time. And if we are freed of this urge, self-confirmatory ideation is nothing else but bragging. And we have this compulsion to brag all the time, to show off, and to say, I am, me, I, mine, etc. Now, when we are liberated of this compulsion, we have an awful lot of energy available.
Dr. Hora, I have a question at the beginning. You talked about, made the statement that our ideas aren't our ideas, but someone else's ideas. So presumably they're not someone else's ideas originally either.
Yes, but they come to us from mind to mind to mind. Right. We are influenced by each other's garbage. If we have a lot of garbage, our neighbor will smell it. Yes.
Generally speaking, what is the ultimate origin of those kinds of ideas?
The garbage ideas?
Yeah,
Yes.
original.
Yes, we mentioned it before. It is the source of all ignorance is judging by appearances.
Okay, now is this in time or is this each now? Each time we judge, it starts a new
Well,
wave of mental garbage.
Garbage is in time. It's constantly accumulating. Yes, Jesus said, judge not by appearances, but judge righteous judgment. What is righteous judgment? Phyllis? No. Righteous, what does righteous judgment mean? Betty, you know?
See it through God's eyes or thinking the way God knows they are?
Well, that is, of course, theologically true, but in metapsychiatric terms, it is judging things on the basis of their existential validity. When we learn to distinguish between what is existentially valid and what is not valid, then we become capable of righteous judgment. Like what? Discernment, right, sure. Spiritual values, spiritual qualities, and spiritual ideas constitute all the things which are existentially valid. And then if we have learned to see those, to appreciate those, then we are capable of righteous judgment. Otherwise, we are just confused. What's the question? Yes. Well, Roberta gave us a beautiful example how our pets are extensions of our thinking, of our consciousness. Now, if a cat can know what Roberta is thinking, surely her children must be very much under the influence of her thoughts. And children are also extensions of parental consciousness. Therefore, to be an enlightened parent is a tremendous responsibility, and it requires constant purification of consciousness.
This is very observable to anybody who has come to the point of clarifying their own mode of being and the particular ignorance that belongs to that mode of being. You can see it as clear as day in your children. And also, if you have contact with your parents, you can also see that you can see that the same idea obtaining once you're clear of those ideas, they show up very clearly.
Yes.
And would you define the concept of obtaining? Is it like a magnet drawing iron filings?
Actually, the word is Dr. Hora's word. Will you define the concept of obtaining?
The word obtaining is one of my most favorite words in the English language. The peculiarity of it is that it denotes very nicely that we don't produce thoughts. Thoughts obtain in consciousness. In other words, we receive them. They just come into awareness. You see, it's not an operational word. It is an existential word. We cannot cause it to obtain.
Like dandelion.
The dandelions, well, yes.
This lady there.
Yeah.
On the last question, train up the child in the way they should go.
Yes.
How would his obtaining?
Yes, we would skip that in the Bible. And we would say, train up your own consciousness and your children will follow in the right path.
Okay, you would skip it on what authority?
On the authority of realization of the nature of human existence as consciousness. See, we train animals, but we don't train people. We inspire people. We set an example.
Is that an unfortunate translation?
It's possible, very possible, yes. Jesus said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. He wasn't training his disciples, he was showing the way. And that's how enlightened parents have an effect and bring up their children. They show the way. Now, some parents show the wrong way, well, most parents do. But always, children who are being trained become rebellious and develop problems. Children who are being shown a certain way, a certain mode of being in the world, will learn either the right way or the wrong way.
We were learning to be a symbol of the good in the community. That would be
Well, you could say that, or we are seeking to realize what is perfect. You know, Jesus said, be ye therefore perfect. We are required to be perfect, even as our Father in heaven is perfect. Now, how would you do that? Can anybody be trained up for that? If we would try to train up a child to be perfect, we would bring up a neurotic perfectionist.
well, we can't make anyone else good.
Right, but we can show the way by working on ourselves. Yes. Yes.
This has something to do with what you mentioned in the beginning about being steward of our time.
Yes, right.
What does that mean, being a steward
It means
of our time?
that we have a responsibility, an inherent responsibility to guard the quality of our thoughts and to maintain an attention focused in the direction of spiritual values.
So that if I recognize a parental fantasy clearly, then
In yourself,
then
yeah.
I would shift to that
Right,
direction of
right,
I'm more
exactly.
interested in
You
discovering.
turn away from it, turn your attention to spiritual values, and it fades out of your life. You don't have to wrestle with it or blame your parents. We cannot blame anybody. We cannot get rid of these things. We cannot wrestle with it. We can only turn our attention to a source which is valid.
Then what is the meaning of, I'm often under the impression that I lost it, or lost the understanding, or, I will be going along and suddenly see something that I think is clear to me, a parental fantasy, but I wrestle with it, I get entangled with it,
Yes.
and then I think I've lost understanding the quality. I had it an hour ago, I understood it, and now I've lost it. And what is the meaning of thinking that I lost something? It doesn't...
But you lost what?
Understanding.
Oh.
Lost understanding the quality, or lost the clarity.
PAGL.
Yeah.
You lost your PAGL.
Lost PAGL.
Yes.
That doesn't seem possible,
Yes.
but it seems as if I go
Yes.
through that.
Well, as Anne explained it this morning, that if you believe that these fantasies are your fantasies and these thoughts are your thoughts, you will try to wrestle with them.
So if I take it personally, if it belongs to me.
Right. This is one of the aspects of possessiveness. If we are possessive, or if we are a collector of things, of junk or what,
Yeah.
we believe in having and holding things, we will be possessive even towards thoughts and invalid ideas. And then you study metapsychiatry and say, well, if these ideas are invalid, I have to get rid of them. And the harder you get rid of them, the more you are involved with them. And that can be a terrible struggle, which is getting you nowhere. It's like trying to get rid of flypaper,
Yeah.
Red?
We are essentially of our parents' thought, and in our lives we're having troubles. Couldn't we subconsciously harbor a great deal of resentment towards our parents because of our unawareness that this in fact is taking place?
Well, if you're inclined to blame somebody, again, if you blame somebody for your problem, then you're getting more and more involved with your problem, and moving from bad to worse.
I'm saying, being unaware that I'm blaming my parents, fully irresponsible.
Yes, you have to ask somebody to help you become aware.
Yes, Hora.
Could you read one more time what it is to be born again, please?
To be born again is to discover that we are individual spiritual consciousnesses. We are not what we seem to be. As man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The Buddha said, man is what he thinks, having become what others have thought.
Could you also maybe expand on something Doyle started? A lot of us have had some kind of an experience or realization that definitely was transformational. How does that compare?
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
Well, the transformation can be from flesh to flesh. You see?
The same route.
Most of the time, that's what it is. From flesh to flesh. From one form of invalid idea to another invalid idea. So it is really no change whatsoever.
He was someone.
Yeah. Yes.
Dr. Hora, when you realize you have a problem, or you recognize that something's not the way it could be, is it always necessary to identify the meaning or the mental equivalent, or can you go on to concentrate or to become aware, seek to become aware of a truthful thought?
Well, it is not always necessary. depends on how advanced you are in your studies. If you're sufficiently advanced, you can just turn your attention so wholeheartedly to the truth of being that you lose sight of all your problems. Otherwise, it helps to understand the meaning of the problems, because then not only can you be healed, but you will assure that it will never return. Sometimes we are healed of a problem, and a few days or weeks later we run into the same problem all over again, because we never understood the meaning of that problem.
The meaning was identified when understood.
If the meaning,
If you come back again, even if the meaning was identified,
yes,
but there was no understanding it.
well, once you really the meaning is really not identified, it reveals itself to us. And when we see the error of our ways, then we can reorient our lives in such a way that that problem will never plague us again. Some people seem to suffer the same thing over and over and over again.
It's great.
Yes, Gray.
I think the helpful maybe when it takes and like response to Rhoda was one may change behavior, but it does not mean that one is healed or has.
Right, of course.
In
Sure.
so-called born again experience and religious concept, yes, we can change behavior.
Yes.
I know I've got it.
Yes.
Healed.
Right.
In mental psychiatry.
Right, of course.
And that's, I think, that the change in behavior is even.
Right. The issue is not behavior, the issue is expanding our capacity to see. As thou seest, so thou beest. I think Roberta was trying.
I have a question for the parents that I'm not fully, I don't understand.
Roberta louder.
Oh, I'm sorry. As I'm growing spiritually, I find that I'm loving my parents more and not concerned so much with their funny ideas as I used to be when I was younger. And I took a trip 2 years ago, and my youngest son, who hadn't seen them in several years, stayed with them, and I went on to a conference. And when we came back, he said he couldn't wait to get away. They have so many stupid ideas. And it was even more noticeable in him. And now my oldest son is going to visit them after 4 years. And I'm thinking, is that what generation gap is that we no longer have the same thoughts? And now 2 generations later, there's a definite difference.
Well, the generation gap is really one stupid idea being intolerant of the other stupid
Another form of a stupid idea. I somehow had the idea that now he no longer had certain modes of being which I thought I had overcome, and therefore he didn't have. And I was aware of the difference.
As we grow spiritually, we become more and more compassionate. There is no condemnation and blaming and animosity, none of those things.
So that's a different meaning.
Right, right.
Yeah, I was wondering, with traditional psychotherapy, the change of one set of fantasies.
Yes, that's right. Improving your dream.
Would people more than likely be accepting the therapist's fantasy if it had changed?
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Jungian patients have Jungian dreams and Freudian.
I need a bit of clarification. If man is not a thinker, then how can we be stewards of our thoughts?
There is a difference between thinking and awareness. In metapsychiatry, we learn to be aware. You see, unenlightened man has the illusion that he is producing his own thoughts.
Original.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Now where?
You see, a psychiatrist will say, I wrote this paper and I figured it all out. You see what?
What does the metapsychiatrist say?
It obtained. Yes.
If I become aware of a parental fantasy and heal, is it more likely that it would be healed in my children? Would there be a corresponding change in them as well?
Any healing in the parent's consciousness is a great blessing to the whole family, particularly the husband.
What about the divorce?
Spoke of very clever conversion. What's the basic difference between spiritual conversion and those others, physical conversion, religious conversion? Is there a basic difference to differentiate spiritual from the other?
Absolutely. The difference is radical. That's the whole meaning of what Jesus said. That which is flesh, and that which is spirit, which means no matter how many times you make yourself over in some other kind of person, you're still just flesh. See? No matter how many times you are reincarnated, no matter how many operations you go through, sex change operations and cosmetic operations and who knows what, nothing has changed. But when you are reborn of the spirit, your consciousness is transformed. And no surgery can touch consciousness. Right?
Yes, Paul.
I think then that a lot of the conversion that's going on in secular psychotherapy is essentially the same as religious conversion, ideological compliance, adopting the ideology of the therapist.
Yes, it's called doctrinal compliance. Correct. Yes.
Joe?
In the medical heart study, what is the meaning of men by great numbers dying earlier than women? Has there been I just lost my husband. Has there been a thought to the understanding of this earlier death of men than women?
Yeah, well, this is not true of all cultures. It's probably a shared dream within a culture. Because our living and our dying are both aspects of the same dream of the life in the flesh. Yes?
How does metapsychiatry address the old problem of deja vu?
Well, deja vu is an experience, an illusion, which says, well, I've been there before. Yes? Certainly, it's all within the realm of the dream. It is, very often happens that we dream the same dream over again, right? At night. Our daily life is no more different than our night life. When we sleep, we are dreaming. When we are awake, we're also dreaming. Yes?
David?
I have a client who has been the #1 life insurance salesman in this country and in Europe for a period of years, and then he was accused of being of doing things illegally, which was a false accusation.
but he's had one confrontation after another with people. He's just had another one where somebody's called him a cheat and he's lost money. His bank account's completely gone. Then he's had 6 pets. 3 have died by being hit by cars. His present dog has epilepsy. And I would appreciate if you can, from that brief sketch, give me any help with understanding a mode of being and understanding what's happening.
Well, this gentleman is living a bad dream.
I figured that.
So you have 2 choices. You can either try to improve his dream by teaching him how to navigate more successfully in these treacherous waters of life, right? Or you can show him that there is a better way, namely to wake up from the dream. Verily, verily, I say unto you.
Yes, Alice.
Dr. Hora, you wake up from the dream. Is it possible to revert back to the dream?
Yes,
It is.
yes,
Wake up first.
right. There's great temptation to do that.
You just have to keep being born again.
Well, you have to be alert. As long as we live, we must maintain alertness and learn to keep our attention in the right focus. And that's the meaning of ceaseless prayer and continuous study and meditation. It is the spiritual path which, when we enter on it, we must maintain that direction. If we let our guard down, we lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
A good one. Yeah, Hora. Figure.
Yes, yes,
In this thought of pending in consciousness, you're saying that before we come to some measure of enlightenment, that we're innocent victims of the thoughts of our parents and of our culture. That these thoughts have been obtaining in our consciousness. We've been living from the sea of mental garbage, which is not our own.
right,
And that when we come to the place where we open ourselves as that bottomless bucket, where these thoughts, divine thoughts pass through, they're also not ours.
right,
So it brings that scripture, Paul says, nothing is their own.
right,
So my salvation that Baptist preacher give me, that I call my salvation being saved, that was an illusion that it was mine personally, right?
correct,
But I had a personal salvation.
right,
There's nothing but the
yes,
one salvation. He came not in the world,
right,
condemn the world, but to save the world. And it's when we come to that light that we're delivered, that we start obtaining the right thoughts and the right consciousness. But up until that time, we'll be saved time and time again in religious experience. So to be delivered from that is to be an open channel for that.
exactly. There's nothing personal here.
Yes, Laura.
Yes,
Dr. Hora, you had mentioned before about the concept, well, the devil being a needful thing.
yes.
In modern psychiatry, is the devil another one of the fantastic misconceptions from the female garbage? Or is that
The metapsychiatric name for the devil is self-confirmatory ideation.
Yes.
Time for a break.
Yeah, let's take a break and be back here at 3 o'clock.
Maybe we could vent.